Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this conversation about your Kundalini Awakening experience. This is Chrism, and I would like to welcome everybody who is in the chat room right now. I'd like to welcome Eileen and Rosemary, who are listening on their phones, and anybody else that may be listening on their phones. I'd like to welcome Doc Vaj 2, Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez Fasci, MJ Henderson, Sigrid Edworthy, and guest 1491 and 1482, and anybody else who may be listening to us live right now as we broadcast this show. Today's show is going to be interesting with regards to how the Kundalini takes care of those that it has awakened within. And but first, before we go any further, I would like to bring Her Holiness Amelia Santara on board. Hello, Amelia.
Hi, Chrism. Hello, everybody. Hello, listeners. I'd just like to say to those in the chat room, I don't have a PC with me tonight, so I'm unable to follow your conversation. So maybe let Chrism know there if the sound is coming through okay, and that part of it is okay. So I'll begin by letting people know where they can go if they would like to make a donation to the Kundalini Awakening system.
Wait. Let's make sure the sound is going out. Fasci, Elizabeth, Sigrid, can you guys let us know right now if the sound is okay? Sometimes Blog Talk really gives us problems. Somebody start typing if you're hearing this. I don't see anybody typing. So, okay. MJ Henderson's typing. Thank you. Is it coming through loud and clear? Yes. Okay. Very good. Please continue, Santara. Excuse my interruption.
Okay, no, that's good to hear, Chrism, that it's coming through okay. So I was letting people know where they can go to if they want to make a donation to the Kundalini Awakening Systems program, and it is at www.ascension-kundalini.blogspot.com, and you will find a donate button there on the upper right-hand side. All donations are welcome, and please don't feel that, you have to do this. It's if you want to do this, and if you are in a position to be able to do this financially, it would be most appreciated. So again, www.ascension-kundalini.blogspot.com. Looking forward to the show, Chrism.
Wow, you have such a cool voice with that lovely, lilting Irish accent. Isn't that right, everybody in the chat room? Doesn't she just sound... She's made for doing broadcasting, I think. I tip my leprechaun hat to you.
Well, thank you, sir. You are so kind.
And I'd like to say hello to John O'Connor, your husband. I would like to say earlier in the show that we are indebted to Amelia and John O'Connor for this program, and that the only reason this program exists is because of their generosity and the giving that they give to the world at large. We have people all over the world listen to this program. So John and Amelia, a heartfelt thank you from all of us to the two of you.
On behalf of John, you're more than welcome.
Thank you. Okay, in this conversation, well, first I'd like to say a little bit that, as I always say in the beginning of the program, for people that want to find out more information along the lines of the Kundalini, especially those who are new to the Kundalini, I'll suggest that you go to the YouTube network, where you can find about 300 videos on the Chrism.Kundalini this is the YouTube. And then, of course, we have 4 or 5 Facebook groups, one of which is Kundalini Awakening ! And Kundalini Awakening Systems 2 and Kundalini Awakening Systems 3. And we have a secret group, which, of course, is Kundalini Awakening Systems 1. We also have Kundalini Healing on the Facebook networks, as well as a private student group that is on Facebook. We have Kundalini Awakening Systems 1 on Yahoo, and Kundalini Healing on the Yahoo network. And we're also in Google Plus with Kundalini Awakening ! On Google Plus. And so we have a few areas where people can reach this information, and I invite all of you with that interest to go to those various areas. For seminar information, you can go to KundaliniAwakeningSeminars.com. And we also have a few pages on the Facebook system as well. And I'm going to go ahead and bring Eileen on, and she'll tell us some more about those pages. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, Chrism.
Can you give us the names of those pages?
Well, there's one main page, and it's Kundalini Seminars and Events with Chrism. And on that page, we list the different events that are happening, events, talks, and seminars. So we're trying to get people to go to that page.
Now,
so it's
Kundalini.
I'm sorry?
Ahead. Go ahead.
It's Kundalini Seminars and Events with Chrism.
Okay. And did you set that page up, Eileen?
No, Amelia set it up, and then as people are posting the different seminars, we come in and post our event pages.
Well, I want to thank you and all the other people that are coming in, and of course Amelia for setting up that page. Thank you all. And
You're
I'll
welcome.
put you back in the Shiva Blue. Do you have another announcement you would like to make, Eileen?
Well, I'll let Rosemary, if she's on, talk about the seminar coming up and the talks.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and put her on. Thank you, my dear.
You.
Hello, Rosemary.
Hello there, Chrism. Happy Wednesday to you.
And a happy Wednesday to you as well. Do you have some announcements?
Yes, I have an announcement from happening in our part of the world. There will be a seminar again at the request of the September seminar, February 21st and 22nd. And in preparation for that, I am showing the film around the cities, and also that between time now and then, December 1st to the 7th, you are coming to do talks here in the cities. Perfect time of the season of Christmas and the holidays to see the greatest gift that we have within us. So it will be great to have you with us too, Chrism, during that time. And I have that week, one day left yet to fill, but coming along very well. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be there. It's an honor to come. And thank you for setting it up and doing all that hard work that you're doing. All right. And so we will go ahead and continue onward. Now, I'd like to welcome Julie, who just signed in. So hello, Julie. So when the Kundalini comes to an individual, often it'll come early in the life, early in the childhood, and the childhood will be somewhat challenging for a lot of folks. Not everybody. I'm certainly not going to speak in absolute terms, but for a lot of folks, it will be a very, very difficult childhood. I know that my childhood was somewhat challenging in that regards as well. And as I've mentioned in other programs, these challenges come from people having to deal with karmic issues early on in life when they're at their most vulnerable as a child. And this is as it needs to be in order to begin to sculpt the person towards the Kundalini awakening and activation events that will come into their future. And so, the childhood may have, any of a number of various abusive situations, typically emotionally abusive, sometimes physically abusive or sexually abusive. This is not uncommon. And it does serve as part of the sculpting process for the individual. And a person might ask, well, my God, why would the divine want a little child to have to go through all of that pain? Well, every little child is an adult inside of that child, and every little child has just come into that lifetime after having lived many, many, many other lifetimes where they indeed collected levels of karma. And when a soul is ready to begin to manifest Kundalini transformation in the body that they're going to occupy, levels of karmic balancing will come forward, and this is often a lot of karma. Okay, they have worked hard in other lifetimes to burn that karma. Maybe they were a priest, maybe they were a non-medicine person, whatever. Somebody who was fair and kind and benevolent, but still, there's still more karma to go. And so, as the child comes into life, there is this collected residue, karmic residue from many other lives, and these need to be dealt with, and they're often dealt with in some fairly distasteful ways. Balancing karma is typically not the easiest thing that a person gets to go through. It can be very, very difficult, and yet, for the most part, the Kundalini child will not buckle. They will not commit suicide. They will not be allowed outside of that karmic paradigm that they agreed to be within. Okay, the parents were selected very carefully. The patterns of probability for that child's life were looked at very carefully. So, there's not a lot to chance when it comes to the children. As the child matures, well then, yes, of course, the patterns of probability will expand, and different levels of interaction with their karma and with other people around them who are there to nurture that karmic balancing will occur. As the person comes closer into the time when they're going to have their Kundalini, well, then a whole different level of shall we say, Kundalini companionship begins to emerge. After you've activated the Kundalini and as you're working towards, say, a spinal sweep and coming in to the actual awakening aspect of the Kundalini begins to take on a very different level of interest and a very different level of interaction. Many times when I was homeless, I was under attack. I was under attack by strangers sometimes. I was under attack by bosses, employers. I lived in a fairly consistent level of trauma and anxiety. And so, of course, this makes it somewhat of a very difficult lifetime to live. But I was protected. I remember at one point I was living in a vehicle on the street, and I tried to start the vehicle, and the vehicle's engine caught on fire. And I really, I didn't have a fire extinguisher. I didn't have anything like that. And I just did the silliest thing that you could imagine, and I just tried to blow it out with my breath. And it worked. Much to my surprise, I blew that engine fire out. And this is just one aspect of how the Kundalini can help you continue along your awakening path. Yeah, and this isn't anything that anybody would really believe you if you told them. Anybody that's listening to this that doesn't have the Kundalini and it's just kind of like, listening to this, say, through curiosity, will just kind of consider me just some sort of a fantasy-laden, nutcake, and I wouldn't blame them one bit because, had I been in a different scenario, I would have probably felt the same way. But as you start moving into the Kundalini, as you begin to feel that pull and that urge to begin to clean up how you are, who you are, what you are, the Kundalini begins to fold an energetic attention over you. I'm having to choose my words very carefully here. And this attention is watching you and helping you with that karma, helping you not become so despondent that you commit suicide, or helping you so that you can overcome many of the barriers to your complacency, to the state of mind, to your ability to think clearly, your mindfulness. It will begin to bring attention from it to you for the purpose of nurturing your activation. Now, a lot of people, they'll get hooked on a drug, they'll get hooked on alcohol, they'll get hooked on some sort of another type of drug, or pharmaceuticals are really bad this way. These SSRIs, the selected serotonin reuptake inhibitors, the only thing they really inhibit or try to is the Kundalini by blocking off the channels of expression that it uses within the person. And so even within that, the Kundalini will often, step in and really try to give that person help, but it won't force that person to accept that assistance. And this is where we get a high rate of suicide from people that are having the Kundalini syndrome, or they've taken drugs and the drugs have caused the syndrome to come. And this is very unfortunate, but they'll have their chance again. They will have their chance again. Okay. But for those of us that are able to go forward and to continue and to nourish our Kundalini, or at least work on it, to try to let it come in and do through us, the wonderful things that the Kundalini does to the world and to the people and the animals and all creation on this world. We strive to go forward, and we will go forward, and the Kundalini will support us as we go forward. Now, I've had plenty of opportunities to have some pretty nasty experiences happen to me. I remember, walking. Well, I was living in Southern California, and my car was a long ways off, and I had to walk back to get it, and I had to walk through some of the really, really nasty, or shall I say, challenged areas of southern Orange County, around Torrance, around they used to have a Marine base around there, and the very, very high in the gang activities, and gangs that I didn't belong to. I've never belonged to a gang. And, these people took a real interest in watching me walk on their territory, and yet they didn't pursue. They didn't pursue me at all. And I was really surprised, and, come to find out later that was a very unusual tactic for them to take. And of course, these days I know exactly what was occurring, and the Shakti was protecting me. But and it branches out into other areas. For instance, last night I went to go voting, and a very, very bad accident happened literally just like 2 feet to the left of my car, and I heard it more than I saw it, because I was going through the intersection at about 35, 40 miles an hour, and I was looking straight ahead, and boy, when that sound, that a huge crumple and a shattering of glass and screams and you name it, boy, and I pulled over, and what a mess, what an absolute mess, people bleeding, people screaming, and it was, very, very difficult, for those poor folks who went through that. And as a Kundalini person, we do, of course, lend as much of a helping hand as we can, and that was done. But once again, for some reason, I was part of that scenario, but not in it, so to speak. And the interesting thing as well was those people who should have been really injured, even though they had some bleeding and some hysteria, they were not seriously injured. And I have a feeling that the Kundalini radiance that they were sitting in as we went through the intersection, the Kundalini radiance reached out and helped them as well. And so I would like to really, really invite you, Kundalini active people, Kundalini awakened people, to recognize the effect, the profound effect that your radiance has on the people around you. And to really, channel through your radiance, those good thoughts, those loving thoughts, those confident thoughts, those happy thoughts, those joyful thoughts. Thoughts that just give levels of validation to people where they need it the most. You don't have to get particular with it. You just have to say to yourself, Kundalini in me, give the appropriate levels of assistance to those who walk into your radiance as it comes through me. And there you go. There you go. That's what you need to do. And I also have another story, but I'm going to let Her Holiness Amelia Santara tell this story. Here you go, Amelia. Hello.
Hello, Chris, and I know exactly what you're referring to, and you know what my memory is like for details when something has, but I can remember, I won't remember all the details, but this is what you're speaking of, is it, when I was sitting in the car with you during one of my visits to the to the ashram, and we were possibly turning right, were we?
No. We were going straight through an intersection.
We were going straight through.
We were going straight through.
The other person was turning.
Somebody turned left right in front of us.
That's
it was going to be a T-bone.
That's right. Yes. And it was your response. I have no idea. This is what I'm remembering. I have no idea how you actually avoided it. I mean, whatever thing you did with the wheel is what created, and you said afterwards, this is Kundalini, because we should have been impacted. It was miraculous that we weren't,
It really was.
So that was a real example of what you're speaking about.
Well, don't let anybody tell you that the age of miracles has passed, because it is not. It has not passed at all, and they're happening every day. And what the Kundalini did is it took a hold of the wheel, and in such an amazing precision move. This is why after it occurred, I told Amelia, I said that was the Kundalini. I could not have done that. And what it did is it turned the wheel sharply to the right, so that we were going to go right into a light pole, a large metal light pole, and then it turned the wheel sharply to the left very quickly. And not only did we miss the light pole, but we missed that person who was going to run right into us as well. They were so shocked, stopped in the middle of the intersection. I could see that in my rearview mirror. Both Amelia and I had our hearts in our throat, and we're just so thankful to the Kundalini for doing this. And this is not the first time. This has happened, with other people that have been in the vehicle, and it just amazes me that the Kundalini is so sharp and so precise and knows exactly what to do. The age of miracles, certainly Kundalini miracles, is present right now in your lives, all of us, not just Amelia and I, but Rosemary, Eileen, Amelia, myself, Elizabeth, Julie, Fashji, the guests, MJ Henderson, Sigrid Edwardy. We all have these opportunities for miracles to occur. And, this is very important for you to really begin to validate in your life as you have the Kundalini. You look at Sigrid and John, these are some lovely, lovely people in Canada, and they're both having the Kundalini couple. And, they were given the exact place to buy their land, to move themselves from various areas of Canada to a much prettier, in my opinion, much more beautiful place in Canada. And this is also protecting their interests. This is also protecting them, letting them know where to go, what to do, when to go, how to do. This is very, very important for people to understand that the Kundalini is not some divine entity that's carved out of wood or stone or anything like that. It is a living and breathing through you, vital aspect of how you live your life once you're upon this path, Kundalini will take care of you. It won't do everything for you. I don't suggest you go out and play in the freeway and not expect to be hit by a car. It's not, it's not giving you permission to be an idiot. Seriously. This isn't like, hey, I'll just go do this. I'll, jump off a diving board into an empty swimming pool just to prove the Kundalini. No. In that case, it will just let you suffer and then maybe resume later on. So know this and understand that the Kundalini is watching you. It is helping you. It is helping you learn. It is helping you to do for yourself which you are not able as yet to do within the Kundalini Awakening equation. Now, if there's anybody that would like to call in and ask a question about their Kundalini, I want to give the number out. The number is 347, that's in the United States area code, 347-934-0026. Any of you can call in. I know there's plenty of you that are listening and they're not in the chat room. They're just listening on the computer. So hello. And if you feel like calling in, the number is 347-934-0026. I'm going to go ahead and bring Santara back online. Now, Amelia.
Yes, Chrism?
Have you experienced other forms of direct interaction between yourself and your Kundalini that would be appropriately described as helping you or protecting you inside of difficult situations?
The thing that came to my mind straight away wasn't, nothing. No, Chrism, I can't at this moment.
Well,
I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. I put you on the spot anyway. For me, there have been plenty of times in my life where, doing a backflip off a diving board and then hitting the board before I, got into the water, that was not good. Various areas, having a horse roll over me and not having any damage whatsoever. Hitting a cow broadside on a Yamaha 252-stroke motorcycle going about 65. The cow walked out of a tall cornfield just to give me a caveat for not being totally stupid. When the cow walks out of a cornfield and stops and looks at you, and you have enough time to reach for the handbrake, and that's it. And I was unconscious on the side of the road, they estimate, for about 40 minutes. And once again, I had virtually no damage. Yeah, I was knocked out, and the bike wound up in a barbed wire fence kind of over me, and I was just laying there. So was the poor cow. I felt very sorry about that. And I have to say that I have been watched over in my life by the Kundalini for a very, very, very long time. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are other people that have had very, very similar scenarios, throughout their lives, as this was going to be a plan for that person's lifetime. And this is known. And so, the Kundalini takes care of her children. It's not unknown the level of positive interaction that you'll have on the society that you live in. Okay. It's not unknown. Go ahead.
Sorry. I've had some things happen, Chrism, such as a very severe burn that did not progress to be a very severe burn, but it should have been. And also, my life was definitely Kundalini. I had an ectopic pregnancy, and my life was saved. I should have died. And I didn't. And when I look back on that, I know that was Kundalini. Yeah. And another thing is, Kundalini often has come and helped other people through my intercession, if you know what I mean. So
Sure.
I'm traveling along the road and I get this huge pull when I get to the roundabout to turn the car around, because Kundalini is directing me to do that. I turn the car around the roundabout and I head back. And there at the side of the road is a lady, a young woman, and she's just lying on the footpath. So I pull up the car, I get out, I speak with her, and I end up driving her home. A lot of things like that have happened. I'm sitting in a place in a different part of the country, and the phone rings, and my sister tells me that her car is flat, the battery is flat, my children are in the car, and there's quite a difficult situation that she needs to be going to. Anyway, I am given, through the Kundalini gives me a visual, and through me, anyway, long story short, the battery is instantly fixed. My sister has said, I've tried everything, Amelia, what am I going to do? It was a bank holiday weekend. And I said, there's nobody around. We're living in the middle of the country. And I said to her, and I told her it was Kundalini, I said, go out to the car. It's going to be okay. It'll start again. And I had an absolute visual on it. And she sat into the car, turned on the engine, and the car began again. That sounds very trivial, but it's not.
No, it's not. It's
it certainly was not. Yeah, and also not only was it, the Kundalini coming to the direct assistance of somebody that really needed it, it was also a teaching for those people of the presence of the Kundalini and how the Kundalini is actively present in a person's life. And I've lots and lots of things like that.
Oh, yeah, and these are all valid experiences of the Kundalini stepping in and helping out. I'd like to welcome Julia from Minneapolis to the conversation. Hello, Julia. And so, yeah, there's quite a level of assistance that the Kundalini will give, and it doesn't end with emergency situations. I mean, I've had a guy pull a gun on me and tell me to get off the land, and I was such an impetuous little shit when I was younger, and I just said, "What are you going to do? Shoot me? Go ahead." And he backed off. You can see the Kundalini had a handful with me as when I was a teenager. But yeah, this extends further into how a marriage is going to go. Sometimes we grow in love with each other, and sometimes we grow out of love with each other. And in our society, we're constricted with our level of movement to a large degree, with social expectation about whether a marriage is going to continue, whether it's not going to continue, and here in this type of a scenario, the Kundalini will assert itself into the marriage equation. No part of your life is sacrosanct that keeps the Kundalini out. The Kundalini knows you better than you know yourself, and as a kind of like a divine parent, it will put its hand on your shoulder, it will put its hand on your heart, it will put its hand on the shoulder and the heart of your spouse, and if it's untenable, if your marriage is untenable, then that is going to become transformed. Not necessarily transformed in the way that all of a sudden you'll fall in love with each other again. Sometimes you just have to go your separate ways. Not the easiest thing to see, but when you're inside of the Kundalini, and if you're surrendering to the Kundalini, and if you're feeling what it has to show you, then yes, you'll understand that it indeed does have a great degree of control over our marriage life, our marital life, and even if we have kids in the equation, the kids will always be taken care of. That goes without even saying. The Kundalini is kind of like the ultimate parent. And the children will be taken care of, but they will not be taken care of within the equation of those two adults who maybe can't stop arguing or can't agree on anything or being abusive to each other, either emotionally, physically, or both. this type of a scenario may not be tolerated by the Kundalini, and it will begin to initiate a divorce or a separation, just to really begin to help equalize or balance the situation that the Kundalini person is going through. Certainly, if there is no need for karma, that type of a karmic balancing, well, the Kundalini will step in and begin to make those types of changes. So don't be surprised if this is occurring to you. Any of you that are married and maybe you're not in the best marital communication at this point. Maybe the love has gone away, or maybe it's turned in more into an addiction to the status quo, or a common element of convenience for each other. The Kundalini can and will begin to end a marriage, and you need to understand that and surrender to the Kundalini. And just make sure that you're able to discern that this is indeed Kundalini and not your ego, just trying to look for any other way out of a hurtful situation. Okay, so I really wanted to go through this with all of you, that the Kundalini protects you. But here's another aspect of that protection, is that you must work the process. You must surrender to the process. You must begin to inculcate within your life the activities, attitudes, thought processes that are nourishment to the Kundalini. You don't just get to go, oh, well, I have Kundalini, I don't have to do anything now. A lot of belief systems, especially in the East, they have some fairly strong expectations of the Kundalini being a certain way. When you reach a certain stage, then you're going to feel this, and you're going to feel that, and you're going to feel this, and that's just the absolute way it's going to work, and there is no other way. And this isn't necessarily the case. Kundalini takes things on an individual basis, case by case by case by case. And you have to lift a finger in this process. You will need to do your devotions to the Kundalini. You will need to pay attention to what it tells you. You will need to pay attention to how it urges you to go one way or the other. We're talking about food. You're going to go veggie for a while, or you're going to go carnivore for a while, or you're going to have sex for a while. You're not going to have any sex for a while. It will begin to really dominate your human-based expressive bodies. Your physical body, mental body, emotional body, psychological body, and your spiritual body. Kundalini will begin to control these, and you need to be okay with that. You need to be okay with that. It has your best interests at heart. Okay? So work that process. Here, I espouse the safeties. I espouse the safety protocols. You can get to those safety protocols by going to KundaliniAwakeningSystems1.com. And if you look at the menu on the left-hand side down, I believe it's the 5th option. It says the safeties. Practice those as much as you can. Those were written by the Kundalini for people who have the Kundalini and are wanting the Kundalini. So the more you work the process, the more the Kundalini is going to work that process in you. And as it works that process in you, it is going to shield you from unnecessary threats and unnecessary problems that would get in the way of your Kundalini equation. Not to say that it's going to take out all the challenges, as it certainly isn't. It will not take out all the challenges, but it will take out those challenges that aren't necessary. You don't necessarily need to be in that accident. You don't necessarily need to be robbed at gunpoint. You don't necessarily need to have that disease or to have that terrible thing befall you or your child or your spouse or anything that would take you away from the Kundalini Awakening equation. Believe me, it's a fairly powerful protective consciousness that is around you. And so as you work your process, so do you begin to enjoy the benefits of the Kundalini's process upon you, of its responsibility with you, its consideration for you. Now let's just move it into the financial realm here. You know, I mean, after 2007, you know, everybody took some really, really hard hits financially. And so you do the power prayer that I've discussed in another program, and you can ask the Kundalini to arrange for money to be given to you. This is not unethical. This is not without morality. You need to eat. You need to pay the rent. If you live in Canada where Sigrid, Edward, and her husband John are living, you need to have some heat, right? So you need to have some sort of a factor in your life that allows those basic needs to be given. And that is what the Kundalini will help you do. You just need to work the process. Do the good things that you're always there to do without expecting payment. Make the power prayer. If you need $50,000 or whatever it is, then make those power prayers. I have done it, and it works. As some of you know, the Kundalini took me to casinos, and I won at the casinos. I had no idea that I would win, but I won. And I'm not, just like Christ said, these things I do, you can do it more. And well, let me tell you, these things that the Kundalini has allowed me to do, it will do through you and more. Think about that if you're putting a new roof on your house and you're having a hard time handling it. Think about that if you're looking for a new job and you haven't been able to find a new job and you're being pressured by family or by spouses or by your own personal responsibilities about having an income. Think about that. Think about it if you just, you're just on the brink of starting a new career that's Kundalini based. Let it be a healing clinic or some sort of a healthcare practitioner type of position. Think about that. Do those prayers for that. You can do these prayers for yourself. Yes. They are powerful, and in some cases more powerful when you do it for another person. Okay, I get that, and it's true. It is absolutely true. But you can still do it for yourself. And you do the same breathing technique that I discussed. Everything that I discussed in the parking lot outside that cafe in Lake Minnetonka, Minnesota. Okay. When we did the Power Prayer radio show there, you go back into the archives, you look for that show, you learn that technique, and it will help you. It will definitely help you. And I would like to bring Her Holiness back on right now. And, of course, we know that I'm talking about Miss Ireland herself, Amelia Santara. Hello, Amelia.
I'm back, Chrism.
Now, I understand that you may have some questions from the groups.
Oh, yes, I have a few gathered. The first one comes from Diva Sadvi, and she asked this actually...
Sadvi. Hello. She's listening right now. She's in the archives.
Because she said she might not be, so I'm asking on her behalf. She sent me a private message, and here it is. Today you wrote something on one of your posts, and she would like if you would explain a little bit more about it. Okay. And so I'm going to give you the quote, if that's okay. Are you ready?
Wait a minute. Let me get my seatbelt on here. Okay.
So this is it. The scriptures are there to help a person attain the Kundalini enlightenment, not to control it or to tell one what parameters there are within it. This goes into controlling the Kundalini, and even as one has Kundalini, one isn't often given the full extent of their karma. That awaits the dispensation of the fleshless behind the veil examination of the life. And this is what she would like you to speak a bit more about, Chrism.
Oh, what part of that was it?
I think all of it. Well, I think the introduction was about, the scriptures are there to help a person with their enlightenment, not to control a person and, dictate the parameters. And then I think it might be the next bit, this goes into controlling the Kundalini. And I think that we are not given the full extent of our karma, and that awaits the dispensation of the fleshless behind the veil examination of the life.
Such a long one. All right.
I know. I think that's just a tiny fraction of it.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to go. I'm going to go to what I wrote here so that I can actually see it. So that means I'm not able to see you on the chat group, folks, because I'm going over here to look what was written. Well, I'm just, some of these folks really are able to write a lot. Yes, okay. The writings are correct and they're incorrect. This is about the scriptures, everybody. The writings are correct and they're incorrect, meaning that aspects of them are correct and then aspects of them are incorrect due to incorrect interpretation. Because what they're taking as they're assuming that everybody is going to have the same response to the Kundalini that everybody else has had, and this is just not the case. Of course, sometimes, everybody may get a Kriya in a group of people that are having Kundalini. Maybe Kriyas will come, or maybe people will see entities, and if you're seeing an entity, then the maybe 60% of the people in the room will see entities. Not all of them, but 60% will. And so they're basically trying to formulate an established protocol of interaction that the Kundalini will have on everyone, and this just doesn't occur. Everybody's got unique karma, so everybody comes to this table with a different level of experience that they're having. Granted, Amelia may see one kind of entity like a Tinkerbell. Chrism may see some other kind of entity like a gaseous pyramidal shape. Okay, but they're different. They are different. They may still both be entities, but they're different types of entities, and they're different. And so when these ancient texts are saying, oh, well, then you'll see this and you'll see that, and absolutely not. Absolutely not. One must always factor in the karmic nature of the individual and factor out this ideation that people, through their interpretation, can just go ahead and blanket the Kundalini interaction, its personal interaction with everybody, and blanket that and color that the way it's going to be for everyone. It's just not the case. And so as one merges into the divine, yes, we have many things that are similar. All is felt, known, experienced. When you have that union with the divine, all is known, all is felt, all is experienced, and it happens. For many people, it'll happen in that flash of eternity. And the reason why I say flash of eternity is time takes on a very different standard for most people. I'm not going to say it's going to be eternity for everyone, but it's going to be timeless in a way. It kind of goes between the immediate flash and the eternal qualities of time, and then the work will proceed. And we're never done while we're in the body. Self-realization is exactly what it means. Self-realization of the divine that we have and are being transformed to is unique to us as much, if not more, than it is similar to us. Okay? In many cases, the scriptures say, oh, well, once you've reached enlightenment, well, then you don't. I'm holding back from going into my Indian guru voice, just so you know. So I won't go into this one, but no, I won't do it. So they're making the case that, oh, you never have to have a body again, or you never need to have a body again, or you won't come back with a body again, indicating that you've met all your karma. Well, this is not typically the case, but the option to come back is given. The option to come back and to be a light among the masses is given, and that is often taken up by people because their levels of love are so strong for their brothers and sisters who are not awake yet, that they will go into a scenario where they will suffer and they will be abused, and yet they will also be able to have and hold a Kundalini awakening experience and awaken that physical body that they're in and give that radiance into the populations. And then the scriptures are also there to help a person attain the Kundalini enlightenment. They're there to feed that flame, to fuel that flame. And part of the ways that a lot of the scriptures did, well, you'll get this if you do that. And then if you do that, well, then you're going to get this shiny new car over here, or this shiny new psychic skill over here, or this out-of-body experience, or this type of interaction with the divine, this or that. And you need to understand that it's not always going to sell it to you that way. The scriptures are not correct when they make those types of promises because they don't know your karma. They're trying to invent a kind of like a replicated cookie cutter type of Kundalini awakening, and it just doesn't happen in my experience of this. Now, maybe if you're part of a certain lineage and you're going through the whole lineage process, and so maybe because of the lineage, the Kundalini knows you're in that lineage, and it knows that you have this expectation and that expectation, and then it'll because for the longest time, the lineages, certainly in India, were one of the few bastions or areas where you could actually have the Kundalini and be okay and not be, put to the sword or thrown into the snake pit as a crazy person, right? So oftentimes, though, the scriptures, just like many of the martial arts practices or the Taoist practices, they try to control the Kundalini, and they try to tell a person what the parameters are within the Kundalini awakening equation, and they don't know that person's karma. To say that a person will always experience this thing one way or the other is not true. It is not true, and it is so not true that it begs to be corrected. Okay, there are very few people that are having electrical kriyas, for years and years and years, and yet, a very good friend of mine is having that right now. Where does it say that in the scriptures? Where is his activated event in the scriptures? Well, nowhere. And I invite you to try to find a Kundalini awakened yogi or teacher who is having that or has even ever had that. Kundalini is not so precisely logged and charted and predictable, is basically what I'm saying. Okay? And because even within the full Kundalini awakening, you don't necessarily get to have your karma. You don't even necessarily want to know about it. You know that you burned a lot of it, and you know that's really up to the Kundalini to help you with. And so that review of karma will wait until you decide to pass. If you decide to pass, whenever you're going to pass. Okay, the flesh can be immortal, but it typically isn't. It typically isn't. And if it was immortal, it would just take people that much longer to learn the lessons they need to learn. This is why we have the gift of death. Death is a gift. It is not something to be, frightened of, and it's not something to go out and look for either. It's a gift that allows us to review how we're doing on our pathway to the divine, how we're doing on our path to God. And it's not going to be the same way for every person. That's basically what I was trying to say in that paragraph. And I apologize. I do apologize, first of all, if I've stepped on anybody's toes, and I'm sure there's a possibility that occurred, number one. And number two, I apologize for not writing it with a level of clarity that would bring those points across in a greater way, in a greater context. Yeah.
Thank you, Chrism. No, that's really good. Can I just ask you, do we need a body in order to reach enlightenment?
Yes.
I mean,
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So a body is an amazing gift, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. You don't get to commit suicide or just like, oh, the Japanese call it committing seppuku, right? You don't get to commit suicide and go, oh, well, I'm enlightened now, because you got to go through it all over again.
Yeah.
The Kundalini has to reside in a physical expression in order to enlighten that physical expression, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So So the next question that's here is, okay.
You're welcome.
How do you?
Wait. You're welcome, Madeva
Yeah.
Sadvi. And she's saying thank you. And so thank you for asking such an astute question for my writing challenges. Go ahead.
No, your writing isn't challenged. When you write a sentence, there's so much in it that it's compressed. So it's wonderful for the opportunity to happen here for you to sort of unthread it or unravel it a little bit more for us. So there's nothing wrong with it. It just needs, that's it. So thank you. Thanks as well to Diva Sadfi. The next question is, how do you surrender? By just letting go? I constantly observe the ego and all that it clings to and wonder if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But it's all in divine timing, right? And that's the question.
No, it's not necessarily divine timing. Here's the thing, is this is part of the responsibilities that we have. We have to lift a finger. This is part of us lifting a finger. We have to lift a finger and do the surrendering work. And now the good part of that question is, how do I surrender? Well, you change. Surrendering is changing yourself from one behavior to another. So if you're holding a grudge against a person, will you change that behavior by forgiving them? And by doing that forgiveness within a Kundalini context, remember how important context is. Within a Kundalini context, if you're doing that forgiveness, then you are indeed surrendering to the will of the Kundalini, because it wants you to do that forgiveness. Forgiveness removes blockages. And so if you're watching the ego go through its patterns of expression, well, that's one thing. But don't just watch. Actively change that expression. You can control the ego. You don't have to buy the Snickers bar. Okay? And if you live in Ireland, they don't even have Snickers bars there, I'm pretty sure. Is that right, Amelia? No Snickers bar in Ireland, right?
No, wrong, actually. We do.
Oh, no. The American invasion.
Yes, we have Snickers and Mars and all those things.
Oh. Well,
even Hershey chocolate.
You don't have to buy those Snickers bar. Even if you're in Ireland, you don't have to buy the Snickers bar. You don't have to lift that glass of alcohol. You don't have to smoke that cigarette. You don't have to put that needle in your arm. You don't have to sniff that white powder. You don't have to flip that person off. You don't have to hold that grudge. You don't have to eat so much that you have to regurgitate in order to fit some more in. Not that any of you do these things. So, this is how you surrender as well. You make the necessary changes. You make the necessary changes. If you're a slovenly person, clean it up. If you're a disorganized person, well, make sure you know where everything is. One person's disorganization is another person's organization. So who am I to judge, right? If you're treating people a certain way that maybe isn't with kindness and consideration and compassion and helpfulness, change yourself into committing those acts of compassion and beauty upon another person. If you're so used to cutting off people in traffic, sometimes you have to in LA. Believe me, I've lived in LA. Let other people go ahead of you. Balance out those scales. Okay? You don't just watch the ego go through its manifestations of behavior. You change it. And you change it consistently. You just don't do it. Okay, I didn't hold a grudge yesterday. It was November 6th, no, I'm sorry. It was November 4th yesterday, and I didn't hold a grudge all day long. So okay, I'm going to hold a grudge now. No, these are permanent changes that the Kundalini is giving into you, and so therefore your behaviors need to also be changed permanently. Permanent changes. So as you watch the ego, and as you take the cues from the ego, from the safety protocols perhaps, being more compassionate, being more sympathetic, being more forgiving, being more tolerant, being more honest, being more patient, being more trusting, being more loving, being more sincere in your love. As you practice just those 9 qualities that I just mentioned, make them permanent. And then as you self-correct in the future, they become a much more stable level of expression, and they will be amplified by your Kundalini. This is also surrendering to the Kundalini. And Vashti has a question, and I'm gonna ask you a question, Santara. You ready?
I'm ready. I was going to make a comment there, actually, but okay.
And Vashti asks, I'd like to ask a question about living a karma-less life. Go ahead, Vashti. We're waiting. Type it out. Type out that question, or is that the question? Is that the question? So we'll wait for Vashti to type.
Well, while he's typing, can I say something about that last thing? It's just, observing the ego. Sometimes I'm aware of a couple of friends of mine who are big into observing, and passively observing and allowing this to, various behaviors, they observe them and they don't get, caught up in them, but at the same time they continue to do the same things over and over. And one of the gifts really of the safeties in a Kundalini context, in any context, but in a Kundalini context, is that you can actively apply those qualities to the ego, because even if you're just observing, we're being controlled by something, and the ego controls us. And so when we apply the safeties, in my experience, that's how we bring permanent changes, and how we surrender to the Kundalini, because something arises and I observe myself. Let's take the traffic. I observe myself respond. Well, if I apply the ego, or if I apply the safeties and I choose tolerance, well then, I can't just observe myself, then I'm actually directly changing my response. And because there's a big bag of tools to pick from with the ego and with the safeties, and when you become really familiar with them, that's how we can really surrender to the Kundalini and bring changes to our ego's expression. And hello? I think the safeties are incredible. I mean, they have made such a difference to my life.
Absolutely correct. Welcome to my world.
And also, I suppose there's a difference as well too in my experience. We can tolerate. So let's say something is coming and we know that we're being invited or asked or demanded to surrender to something. And sometimes we tolerate it, and that's a different thing to surrendering, I feel.
Well, I agree. I mean, tolerating it is not necessary. Well, I mean, you can tolerate, and if it's something that you haven't been tolerant of before, well, that's an issue of change. Okay, but if it's something that if you're just taking a step back and you're looking at it and you're not doing anything about it, I'm not sure that's tolerating. I just think that's more of a maybe a passive-aggressive way of giving your attention to it without making any changes about it.
Yeah, sort of putting up with something until it passes. Yeah, you're right, actually. I mean, tolerate, not in a tolerance way. Yeah, you're right. It's putting up with something and just waiting for it to pass, and maybe even feeling irritated by the fact that it's not passing, is what I mean.
Right. Well, now let's look at Vashti's question. He says, is it possible to act as an agent for a greater authority, like the CIA, or such as the Kundalini, meaning all of your acts and thoughts are surrendered and performed in the name of the greater authority? Of course, I understand how we have our own karma to work. Let's try that again. Is it possible to act as an agent for greater authority, such as the Kundalini, meaning that all of your acts and thoughts are surrendered and performed in the name of the greater authority? Eventually, yeah. Eventually, yeah. It's very difficult to change your thoughts when you're inside of the miasma, meaning the emotional, mental, and survival-based expressions of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that live around you. You have to remember that your Kundalini footprint goes very, very wide, very, very, almost a mile in diameter. And that's picking up a lot of thoughts, that's picking up a lot of emotions, that's picking up a lot of, evil fantasies, a lot of greed, a lot of disrespect, a lot of invalidation, a lot of these things. And so it is possible as you really, really, really apply yourself as that agent of that greater authority, and then as much as possible, I won't go into the absolute with this because I don't think there is an absolute with it, but as much as possible, all of your acts and thoughts are surrendered and performed in the name of the greater authority. Well, we kind of do this now anyway with the Kundalini. It's just that, some of our acts and some of our thoughts aren't that admirable at the moment. And so we also trust that greater authority, in this case the Kundalini, to be compassionate, to help us learn to change, to help us to really give our complete and total surrender into that. And if you'd like to call in, Vashti, feel free to call in. If I haven't responded well enough, or if you have something else you want to add, my friend, you feel free to call in. You know the number, and if you don't, it's 347-934-0026. And so if you wish to call in fast, you feel free. And until then, Miss Irish 2014. Next question.
I'm watching the. Okay, so I'm just going over to where my questions are written, so I'm not watching the. I'm not watching the switchboard. Okay. Yes, I wanted to know if any of you have experienced Kundalini rash or even heard of it. I'm currently experiencing it.
You
Kundalini rash. No, this is the question. Although seriously. I want to tell now that you've asked.
Oh, sure.
I get. No, here we go now. You did ask, so it's coming. That was a question from somebody on the group. But I get a rash on my head, like pimples, and then it suddenly disappears, and then it suddenly. My whole head is covered in them, and then it vanishes again. It's quite extraordinary, in my opinion.
So you're gonna. It's not even gonna go there.
Okay. Right. Well, let's go back then. Let's ignore that.
No. The rash is common. Yeah, you will get a. What it is the energetic anatomy is having so much energy run through it that energetic anatomy is running that energy through the skin, and the skin can form kind of like a heat rash. But it's not. It doesn't follow the same ideology of a heat rash. It kind of has its own unique expression. You'll get little fluid-covered blisters, little tiny things like maybe a quarter of a millimeter across. Sometimes they'll be very, very itchy, don't scratch them because you have the possibility of scarring your skin. It's not like poison oak. It's not like poison ivy. It's not like urushiol oil, which is the oils in both of those plants. It's something that is typically temporary, lasts about 3-4 days, maybe a week. You can keep the area really dry. On your head, it's a little harder because the hair and the sweat glands in the head will constantly keep that not dry, not moist, more moist than it should be. And you can get it behind the ear as well. You can get it behind the ears, right where the ear is attached to the head. You can also get it under the breasts and under the arms and in the rectal and the genital areas as well, behind the knees. And so you just want to really keep those areas dry, keep them clean, especially when you go to the toilet. And if you're having a bowel movement of fecal matter, you want to make sure that you clean as much of that fecal matter out of that area, because that also, because the tailbone's right there, that's the seat of the soul, so to speak. And that stuff's going to really, really, it's very powerful. The excrement of a Kundalini person is very, very powerful in its level of toxicity. And so, that can also form a kind of a rash. And if you're scratching that, and then you scratch your head or scratch your arm or scratch somewhere else, you can actually spread that, because it's the toxins, in this case, that are causing the rash, not so much the Kundalini. The Kundalini is having the detox effect upon the body, getting rid of that really, really, really strong fecal matter. And yet you want to make sure all of that is off of your skin everywhere. This is why a bidet is, if you can get a bidet, Sigrid, you and John ought to put a bidet in that new house of yours over there in Canada. There you go. Too much
I just want to say it has nothing to do with my head, what you just commented out there. It's nothing scratching my head.
But yeah, the rash will be irritating. Sometimes in some people it lasts much longer. I've known it to last for years on some folk, but for the majority of the people, it's a 3-4 day event, and then right under that percentage, it'll be maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and then right under that percentage, it'll be 3 or 4 months, and so on and so forth.
Oh, mine can be just a day, and then it's gone. I can wake up in the morning and it's gone, and I'm going, wow, that's amazing.
John, your husband, is up there wiping his eyes like, oh my God, I thought it was me.
Okay, moving on. Actually, maybe there was a question about teeth as well, Chrism.
Wait. Let's see. Mahadeva on the chat room says, oh boy, they're going at it hot and heavy here. I got to keep up with them. Yes, I've got the rash on the head. My husband got the rash on the torso and waist area really bad while I was going through the K Awakening. And then Julie responds, I had the rash on both arms just down from the elbows. And fast she says, so did I, Julie. Julie says, my arm rashes lasted for about a year. So there you go. And fast she's not giving us a timeline. Oh, okay. Fast she's only lasted for a week or two. So that kind of follows the unique aspect of it. The rashes will be unique to the individual. And the thing is the more the individual detoxes while they're having the rash, the detoxification of the emotional body, of the mental fixations, of the physical body, of the egoic body, this all adds in also to the length and time and longevity of these rashes on the skin. It's not all connected to just one form of energy. Okay, when you detox your emotions, you begin to detox that rash. When you detox, and start, moving in a line of forgiveness, you can begin to work on that rash too. And then there's also just that level of special heat that the Kundalini will inflict upon the skin, and that is in and of itself is almost like a burn. And this burn can give you those raised small raised welts. These are not raised welts like you get with, like I said, with Kundalini or with poison oak or poison ivy. It's not like that at all, or stinging nettles, which they have in Ireland a lot. I remember. It's not like that. It's different than that. It's not the full-fledged chemical blister. It's a much smaller pinhead type of blister.
That's right, yeah.
And Elizabeth Alden said, mine lasted for about a year and now comes back if I try to wear jewelry. Well, there you go. Now, you see how the Kundalini can use these things as a form of communication. What not to do. And in Elizabeth Alden Gonzalez's case, EDG, the Kundalini says, don't wear jewelry. And every time she puts that jewelry on, well, what happens? Hello. And so she gets a very clear level of communication. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Could you say a little bit about teeth?
Teeth?
And the Kundalini.
Oh, teeth and the Kundalini. Well, that makes it a little different. The teeth represent and as Julia, B-A-V-B-I-V. Julia, how do you pronounce that? B-E-A-I-V-I. E-V-A-B, backwards. Anyway, each tooth represents a sector of the body, each tooth. And the Kundalini, as it goes through the body, if you have a lot of dental work, it can start dissolving that dental work. I've had it occur. Your gums will be protected a lot by the Kundalini, but if you have a lot of, like, say, silver mercury, what are they called, fillings in your teeth, that can really become a problem. If you have bridge work, that can also be dissolved very, very quickly. It's not the easiest scenario with the Kundalini in the teeth. Certainly in the more reactive areas leading up to oh, there it is. Thank you, Julia. Bidey. Okay, got it. In the more reactive areas of the Kundalini equation as it moves into the spinal sweep zone. It can be very, very hard on the teeth. And so, of course, it's necessary to brush your teeth. More important than brushing your teeth is flossing your teeth. And I recommend you use those little tiny micro brushes that you can fit between your teeth. I also recommend those little toothpicky type things that they sell here in the States. I don't know about Europe, but here in the States they sell them. And they have a little line of floss across it, so it's kind of a mix between a toothpick and a floss. But you can floss, and I use those on my teeth as well. The Kundalini can be tough on the teeth, but you got to take care of them. This is part of the equation of lifting a finger to change how the Kundalini equation is working on you. Very, very important that you lift that finger. Very, very important that you maintain a consistent level of hygiene with regards to your teeth every single day. Sometimes twice a day if you can do it. Now, my teeth were stained irrevocably, my dentist told me, during my homeless period when I didn't have running water, didn't have any of these types of things. But I still try to brush them, and I notice that I don't get a lot of blood coming out, when I brush my teeth. My gums are in good condition, but, the dentin on the teeth was damaged during those 12 years of homelessness. So, of course, the only reason I grow a beard is so I can hide all of that. Or it could be that I finally came to the realization that a beard isn't there just so you can have something to cut. Next question.
Can you hear that ticking sound? It's like something going around and around in a circle, like it's like a CD spinning or something? No?
No.
It's gone now. Okay, it's gone. Okay. Next question. I have a personal question, and it's not me now. I'm quoting here. I have a personal question. Yes, I smoke weed.
Go ahead. I have a friend.
Yes, I smoke weed, and I'm not ashamed. It's the only drug I do. I don't even like the word. I prefer the word herb. It does help me to go into a meditative trance, but if it hinders my awakening, can you please let me know? Thank you.
Weed, I assume that he means like
marijuana.
A dandelion. Yeah. Oh, I see.
I'm assuming it's marijuana, yeah? Or cannabis, or whatever you call it in America. Hash.
Okay. Well,
grass.
Well, no, see, you can mow the grass. Gotcha. Gotcha, man. All right. So yeah, what the cannabis will do is if you use it a lot, like daily, which most users will do a lot of it daily, that'll burn out areas of your seventh chakra, and it's not good. It's not a good thing to do for a Kundalini person or a person that's going into the Kundalini or wanting to go into the Kundalini. You need to take care of that seventh chakra. That is a sacred space. That is sacred space for just the divine. And I'll tell you what, a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not addicted to marijuana. I use it every day, though." But I'm not addicted to it. But I use it every day. It's called wake and bake. Don't use it. I would say if you have to use it 4 times a year. Now, one of the areas where it's good is to release stuck energies. And sometimes that's blockages, sometimes not. If you're under the guidance of a teacher, then the teacher can say, okay, smoke this and sit next to me, and they probably won't get possessed by an entity during that experience. Now, marijuana, just like alcohol, opens one up to entity possession, and this is not a good plan. This is not a good plan, and so you just need to take that in consideration if it's something that you're going to do. You don't necessarily need to be having voices shouting at you or shouting obscenities at you in your head that only you can hear. Okay? And we're not just talking 1 or 2, we're talking hundreds. And this is where, you'll get the diagnosis of schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, et cetera, and so forth. So, as with alcohol and as with other drugs, it's not so much a gateway to using more and more powerful drugs. It's a gateway to being possessed by entities. And I just don't suggest it at all. There are times and there are circumstances where it can be seen as beneficial. But using it every day, not a good plan. Not a good plan for Kundalini. All right. Finished with that one, Your Holiness. Put that joint down, Amelia. Come back to the microphone. Come on. Exhale. I guess.
Okay, I'm back. I just stubbed it out there. Okay. Let me see. Next question. I have, again, and it's not me, I'm quoting, I have been reading all about Kundalini. However, I'm very puzzled on how to awaken it safely and permanently. I have not forced anything and don't intend to. So any idea how to awaken Kundalini? Yeah, well, maybe you've spoken, maybe you speak about that all the time, really, Chrism. Will I scratch that, or do you want to say something on it?
Well, I say do the safety protocols. That's the best way to do it. Write that in there. Safety protocols are the safest, the sanest, and the strongest format of self-realization, awakening the Kundalini. There is no stronger format except perhaps for Shaktipat. And then if you're doing a Shaktipat without the safeties, well, once again, you're taking big steps forward and big steps backward at the same time, splitting yourself up the middle. There you go.
Okay.
Because without the safeties give a person refinement. Kundalini demands a certain level of refinement for it to be given within the person in a safe and sane format, so that you can dress the kids, you can drive the car, you can go to work, you can be a parent, you can be a lover, you can be a boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse. You have to have the levels of refinement taken care of first, or at least in the process of it. And if you just receive Shaktipat from a guru and then he just kind of turns you loose onto the world, well, all you have now is you have this Kundalini awakened person that has no refinement. And so they're falling victim to fear, they're falling victim to all of their desires because they haven't worked on their desires, they haven't done forgiveness, so they're going into grudges. They're not taking care of their energetic hygiene, they're not taking care of their physical hygiene. They're going in and they're just, it is not the way to come into the Kundalini if you want to do it in a way that is helpful to yourself and helpful to the environment around you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so again, I'm quoting. This is from the group. I have just finished Kundalini Yoga followed by some meditation. About 10 minutes I started crying. Sobbing. I cried and cried what seemed like forever. Then I felt really happy and my hips started swaying and I couldn't help but hum. I don't know what I was humming, but it was just coming out, hum after hum after hum. I've never experienced this with any past meditation. Could this be my throat chakra opening? I feel so light and at peace.
Well, not to sound ho-hum about it.
Boom boom.
But bums. Not to sound ho-hum.
I'm going to have a special effect thing here for okay, go on.
not to sound ho-hum about it, but these are levels of detox that the Kundalini is giving a person. And as the person cries and releases some of the areas that are hurting them or blocking them, what fills in that empty space where that toxic attitude or energy used to be? Well, that's joy. The Kundalini is communicating in a very basic teaching style. Pleasure and pain. Okay? You release the toxicities through the body, and that can sometimes come out as pain. And then as the Kundalini fills in those empty spaces, it fills it in with bliss. It fills it in with love. It fills it in with joy. And this can happen over and over and over. Yep.
Oh, are you finished?
Yes, that was a fairly basic one. But Celestial Rubies, Her Holiness, has another question about having to do with drugs. And she says, what about someone that has done a lot of different drugs and then quit them? How does that affect the awakening? Let's say a 15-year drug habit. Well, it depends on the drugs that were used, number one, and the habituation with which they were used, number two. It will take a certain amount of time for certain areas of the human system to be healed. One of the things that, of course, will really aid that healing is surrendering to the Kundalini and asking the Kundalini for healing, using the power prayer for the person, for that healing of the Kundalini within that person. Sometimes, these levels of crystal meth and crank and whatnot, those can be quite damaging. And so it will take time for a person's emotional body to be healed from that. It'll chew away at the emotional control of a person. And this is true with the people that smoke the marijuana as well, by the way. And if you're smoking a lot of marijuana or doing a lot of methamphetamine and you have a child, depending on whether both spouses are doing it or just one, that child may also grow up, not a guarantee, but may also grow up with severe emotional control deficiency. And so this is something that you want to be really aware of when you're participating in these entheogens or these drugs. It's not just about you, but it's about your future, and it's about your future progeny, if you even intend on having any, that are going to be affected by these drugs. They don't heal overnight. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes an ability to surrender to the Kundalini, surrender yourself in the most amazing ways that are not socially acceptable, ways that are not certainly acceptable to the ego. These ways need to be embraced. The deeper a person goes within their drug habit, the deeper their surrender to the Kundalini needs to be. She goes on. Cocaine, meth, marijuana, pills, LSD, mushrooms. Well, first of all, I'm not a real fan of mushrooms. You know what mushrooms are grown in, don't you? I mean, come on. I mean, God. And if you don't know, I want you to look that up on the web. So that's
or if you're away, or if you're no, never mind.
So yeah, you know what goes in. Anyway, so yeah, all of these drugs that you're mentioning there are pretty powerful. Cocaine, not so much. Meth, yes. Marijuana for emotional control. A long-term use of marijuana can really, really cut down emotional control, and it takes a while to stabilize those. And the pills, well, we don't know what those pills are, but the LSD can have a burning effect on the energetic anatomy. It can burn you to the point where some part of you will just say, "Oh God, enough." Methamphetamine literally chews its way through your energetic anatomy, and this opens up a real opportunity for possession, long-term possession, because it takes a while for those things to be healed, and therefore the possession in and of itself is a hard thing to deal with. But when and then you add into it having no emotional control, being susceptible to all the fears that the ego is putting out, because the ego is the whole reason you're even doing the drug in the first place, and then, adding in a lack of emotional control, adding mental confusion, and you've got a real recipe for some problems. And so even then, the Kundalini can heal all these things, but it's not going to happen overnight. And it's going to require that a person come into this with a level of diligence and practice and replicability and consistency. You don't get to fall off the wagon and expect yourself to be healed. Yes, my dear.
What if you're taking marijuana or cannabis medically and you're taking it a couple of times a week?
If it's medically supported or not, it's going to have this, very similar effect. Now, I know if you're taking it for cancer, I see what you're saying, Julie. Yeah, that would tie right in with an entity phase on a person for sure. Absolutely. Now, if you're taking cannabis for cancer, it's still going to do the same thing. Now, the reason people take cannabis for cancer is to improve their appetite, and it's effective that way. And there are some pain mitigation areas too with that. But when you're fighting cancer, you're fighting for your life. You're not going in it for a Kundalini activation. It's a different scenario.
No, yeah, but if you were, say, Kundalini activated and you were taking it for pain or something rather than for, the pleasure of, would that make a difference, or does it still open you up?
You don't want to take cannabis for pain. No.
Okay.
Typically, cannabis will make pain much worse. It has an amplification too.
Okay.
But only if you're in Ireland.
Right. I was going to ask an alcohol question, but I'm not now. So, okay. The next question is, it's more, I have a very calm period now, no signs, no special visual phenomena. Could this be related to that life throws me a very energy-taking task, or what do you think? I feel as if some of you have felt that Kundalini has deserted me, even though this is not the case. Any reflections?
Well, in a reflection scenario, my periods have pretty much cleared up a lot. I don't suffer from PMS as much as I used to. Boy, I tell you. But no, it can clear up the periods. It can get rid of PMS. It can really induce a flow. It can induce a double flow per month, and sometimes even a triple flow per month. And so,
that's not what she. She meant. That's not the question. She meant time. Let me. I'm having a very calm time now. No signs and no special.
We're not talking about menstruation?
No, we're not. We're talking about no special visual phenomena and such from somebody who has a very, very.
Period in there somewhere.
Yes. She said she's having a very calm period now. She means time. Okay.
I don't think that was out of the question. I mean, come on, chat room.
I know.
I'm having a very calm period.
Okay. Well, continue then.
Where was I supposed to go with that?
Okay. What's Vashti saying?
Spivey's saying LOL, and Celestial Ruby's going ha ha ha. Devatavi's going ha ha ha. None of the guys are responding though. I can see how that. They're still traumatized.
Okay. So will I move on?
Please, no. Ask the question. Try to rephrase it though, would you?
I would. I have a very calm time now. There are no signs and no special visual phenomena. Could this be related to that life has thrown me a very energy-taking task? What do you think? I feel as some of you have felt that Kay has deserted me, even though this is not the case. Any reflections?
Well, it is like a sine wave. I mean, you'll get plenty of phenomena, then it'll go away. And that is a plateau experience. Plateau being flat. You're not walking down the mountain. You're not walking up a mountain. You're walking across a plain, a plateau. And so, as you have the plateau experience, it's a place where you're really being given an opportunity to process what you've already received, process what you've learned, process what you've experienced, and getting yourself prepared to have more. And no, Kundalini doesn't leave you, but you also don't get to leave it because you're not getting phenomena that you've grown to expect, okay? You don't depend on phenomena to chart your course. Early on in the activation, the people typically will use phenomena to chart their course, but in the long run, you're going to have those periods where there isn't phenomena, and then you're going to have periods where there's lots of phenomena, and you want to really, really just trust the Kundalini to give you what you need to do and continue to support the Kundalini. I don't hear this person mentioning the safeties at all. So this person, is probably not doing the safeties at all, and so therefore not lifting as much of a finger as he or she could be lifting, and therefore, asking just like, oh wow, I know it hasn't left me, but it is not giving me what I used to have, and it's like, gosh, what's going on? No. You have to lift a finger. You have to walk it. The Kundalini is not going to put its fingers into your pants and walk your legs for you. Okay? You have to do the work. You have to do the work too.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Are there any significant differences in the way one might experience a refinement process after a spinal sweep as opposed to experiencing refinement before a spinal sweep?
Oh, I remember this question. Well, yeah, there's huge differences. Ask the question again.
Okay. Are there any...
This is Bivey's question, and so It's very intricate and it's very well worded. So read it slowly for me.
Are there any significant differences in the way one might experience a refinement process after a spinal sweep as opposed to experiencing refinement before a spinal sweep?
Well, after the spinal sweep, when you have become at one with the Holy of Holies, when you have merged with God, there are certain tags of information, certain levels of knowingness that has occurred now, and you are forever changed because of that interaction with the divine source. And so, of course, from that amazing experience, definite patterns of refinement will increase in some ways and decrease in other ways. You don't have to wonder, what is this all about anymore? You don't have to wonder about, do I surrender to this or do I not? You don't have to wonder, well, is this really the real thing or is it not? I mean, when you have bonded with God, when you have bonded with divine, it makes a huge difference in your response to the levels of refinement that it will put you through. You'll become far more agreeable and understanding with levels of karmic refinement that you're currently undergoing, or personality refinement, self-correction. It becomes far more of a reason to celebrate. It changes your whole attitude after the spinal sweep. Now, coming up to the spinal sweep, you're still kind of going, like, God, I feel these urges, and I'm having it, waking up in the Gaian mudra, waking up with, in this Kriya, and I'm having all of this, and geez, am I schizophrenic? Am I bipolar? I mean, what am I doing? I mean, it's like, am I possessed? I mean, what's going on? What is this all about? What is it all for? And boom, the spinal sweep occurs, and then you know what it's all for. You know what it's all about. You know that you'll have to surrender. You'll know that you have to do the work. You'll know that the refinement is serving very, very positive, powerful, purposeful purposes within you. So there you have that.
Thank you, Chrism. Last night I had a dream, again it's not me, that I was bit in the hand by a large snake that I was holding. Its fangs sank deep into my hand and I had to pull out the fangs after it bit me. I can't recall any pain associated with the experience. This snake came out of nowhere. It didn't seem to fit in or have anything to really do with the storyline of my dream. Can you say something about this, please?
Yep, that's being bit by the Shakti. That is being bit by the Kundalini. The Kundalini has reached into that person's awareness inside of a dream where it has absolutely no business being there. And it does this as a measurement of there's a word that that's not coming to me right now, but because it is so out of place in the dream, that is going to form a very strong memory of this occurrence. It's so out of place that it's easier for the person to remember it. And the fact that it's painless, the fact that it bit that person, I think it bit him in the left arm too, very, very, very important invitation and calling into the Kundalini. When you get snake bit, a lot of the people that have the Kundalini come to them say, yeah, I was bit, I was snake bit. And that happens in your dreams typically, but it can also happen in a waking vision. So that snake and those fangs and the fact that it's out of place all served to help that person remember the memory and to describe the memory to people who the Kundalini knew would be able to explain it to him in a Kundalini context. And I believe the snake was black as well, which is another Kundalini color.
Mm.
You have that.
Okay, thank you. And now another question. I am starting to incorporate the 5 Tibetans and have a question about the first rite. What is the purpose of the spinning and why is it in a clockwise rotation?
Well, the spinning is there to help a person understand that we can become helicopters if we truly want to be. We can fly. If you spin fast enough, you will leave the earth. The clockwise rotation is to the right, and it is a healing. It is the healing vector that the Tibetans, through their research, discovered that the healing vectors are to the right. There are other components that are involved to the left, which I won't go into. People can get fairly nauseous going to the left, so I don't recommend it. Certainly not within a Kundalini context. It does release a micro amount of Kundalini into the system that the next Tibetan will pull into the second chakra, and then the Tibetan after that will pull all of it from the first to the third, and so on and so forth. And that is the reason why the spinning occurs to the right and what it does.
Okay. Thank you, Chrism. Okay, so I think that's the end of my questions.
Oh, my. Do we have any questions? Oh, yes. What? Yes? Are you okay?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm okay. Why do you ask?
Because you just said, oh.
I'm what? Oh, sorry. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. There. Oh.
You did it again. All right. Okay. We're having way too much fun here. Did I mention alcohol at all? You don't have to lift that glass. All right.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, they're definitely gone. There is a comment, all right, and I was just going to scroll down through the group in case something had come up since I was here last. There is a comment, but it's not really a question.
All right, well, let's just skip that. Go ahead.
No, I'll skip it.
No, everybody's on edge now. What is it?
It says, death is a gift. I feel that as if Master Chrism and I share the same thought process. Who else is listening live? What do you think? I honestly think he's right. Kind of like pressing a restart on a Nintendo 64 without a memory card.
I never played. Who is this?
This is Stanley.
Who?
This is just a comment on the group about death being a gift. Yeah, so I think Stanley is probably listening live to us. Welcome, let's say hi to him. Hi, Stanley.
Hi, Stanley. Welcome to the group. Yes, death is definitely a gift. I'm not so sure it's a reset, but it's definitely a review. Definitely a review, and to see where you got your top scores during that Nintendo game, and where some of your more challenged scoring maybe could use some improvement. So yeah. Now
maybe he means coming back as a Nintendo 64, but without the memory card in the next life. Could that be it? Never mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Behind the veil being without the memory cards. I would like everyone to spread this show around. I mean, I keep asking people to do this. Now, of course, I'm not asking you, Centauri. You're already overburdened. But for any of you that have the time and maybe the intention, spread the show around. Put it on Reddit. Put it on Twitter. Put it on wherever you can put it. I mean, it's not good for this just to sit in cyberspace just wanting for people to listen to it. Let's give it an audience. Let's give it an audience. I'm not asking you to put it on create a fake ID if you need to, and put it somewhere where the people go. And let's help as many people as we can. That is one of the prime directives of the Kundalini. And if you're listening to this show, and if it's helped you in any way, sense, or form, find a place to help others. Find it in your heart to help other people by spreading this show around. The more people that come into this information, the better our world will be, the better our environment will be, and the better our own Kundalini equation will go. And so I guess I'm gonna give you an opportunity to say good night, my dear.
Could I ask one question, Chrism? You mentioned earlier about the teeth, and did you say that each tooth represents a section of the body?
A sector of the body.
Sector of the body. What do you mean by that?
The molars could represent the knees. The front teeth could represent the heart. If you look in Chinese traditional medicine or traditional Chinese medicine, they'll associate the teeth with certain areas of the body. If you look at iridology, certain areas of the iris also represent certain areas of the body. If you look at the ear, the ear and its folds also represent certain areas of the body. The body is full of repetition in its symbolism for itself. And you look on the bottom of the foot, the palm of the hand, the tongue, facial recognition, occipital, you look in the sutures of the head. I mean, they all represent sectors of the body.
Very cool. I knew about the others, but I had never heard of the teeth. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, will I say good night then?
Wait. I once had a dream. This is Vashti speaking. I once had a dream in which I was surrounded by a group of evil male entities. One of them shot me in the third eye with a death ray or a phaser. I added that part. And I experienced a death on a higher plane of consciousness. Any ideas on why I needed to experience death and its process? In order to appreciate the life that you're currently living, in order to appreciate everything that you have now, even the challenges right now. I think all that the evil entity did was they took you out of they took you out of a group that you were in. I was wondering if this was while you were in Ekankar. Can you give me a yay or a nay on that, Vashti? If you were with Ekankar, then that would have been some of the folks that are kind of like, keeping you from perhaps going to their little areas of the astral that they like to visit every night. And I'm getting the feeling that was indeed, there you go, Vashti, and that was part of your termination from that group, and those entities, these evil male entities. I mean, you know as well as I do kind of how the whole Ekankar thing is going. And would you be surprised that it is controlled by some evil male entities? I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be at all. And why they're so paranoid about you coming back or you doing this or that with them. So there you have it. And Amelia Centaura, John O'Connor, thank you so much for having this program today. And yes, Amelia, I'll be happy to talk with you later on after the show. Everybody will be coming back to this same Kundalini channel at this same Kundalini station at this same Kundalini time next week. And I want to wish you a good, happy early November. I had no idea what she just did.
I was trying the sound effects. I apologize.
Yeah. We'll have to work on that. But anyway, Amelia, John, have a beautiful night.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody on the chat group, have a beautiful night. Have a beautiful November. And I look forward to seeing all of you this time next week. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.
Naturtrüb und erfrischend fruchtig. richtig lecker. Krombacher Radler Naturtrüb. Der kräftige Radlergenuss aus naturtrübem Krombacher Kellerbier und fruchtiger Zitronenlimonade. Erfrischend fruchtig und weniger süß im Geschmack. Krombacher Radler Naturtrüb. Probieren Sie es selbst.